Greetings and welcome everyone to the Great North Pagan Podcast, episode 5. It is January 25th, 2012, and boy, what a difference 1 month makes in the weather.
Oh, I know. I mean, even so, the winter's still very mild. I was getting some rain on the way out here from Fargo, so... Well, we're back. This month, I believe we were going to be talking about... It's a broad term, paganism or pagan media, I guess. You know, everything from movies and music to, you know, what else?
Basically, how the media sees of us. If you remember back in the third episode, we covered of how like politics and the community sees about pagans, but now we're going to see it about the light of like how Hollywood and books and television have portrayed it in both positive and negative light.
And obviously, if you've been, you know, if you've even just gotten into paganism, you're aware of how broad of a topic this is. So by no means are we going to be able to even cover really, you know, the tip of the iceberg. But hopefully we can have some movies recommended that you haven't seen, or some music or what have you. And of course, those listening to this, anything we don't cover, which there will be stuff, you know, please leave a comment about stuff that you've seen or you like, and
or if there's anything that we might have missed, or if anything that we've mentioned, you be sure to point it out as well, because it's kind of good insight to looking into this.
Yeah, so, you know, come and join us for about an hour here while we banter and bitch about things we like and dislike, and hopefully you stick around with us.
Okay. Well, if you listen to a nice little musical piece that I actually had grew up when I was young, by the Brobdingnagian bards, called Donald, Where's Your Trousers? It's a nice Scottish song. So we'll be right back.
Enjoy.
I just down from the Isle of Skye, nobody big and I'm up all shy. The lassie shout as I walk by, Donald, where's your trousers? Let the wind blow high and the wind blow low. Through the streets of me kilt I go. All the lassies cry hello, saying, Donald, where's your trousers? I went to a fancy ball, it was somebody in the hall. I was a fear that I may fall, cause I may had on trousers. Let the wind blow high and the wind blow low. Through the streets of me kilt I go. All the lassies cry hello, saying, Donald, where's your trousers? I went down to London town to have a little fun in the underground. The ladies turn their heads around, saying, Donald, where's your trousers? Let the wind blow high and the wind blow low. Through the streets in a kilt I go. All the lassies cry hello, saying, Donald, where's your trousers? Well, the lassies love me, everyone, but they must catch me if they can. Can I put the brakes in the Highlandman, saying, Donald, where's your trousers? And the wind blow high, the wind blow low. Through the streets in a kilt I go. All the lassies cry hello, saying, Donald, where's your trousers? Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Early in the morning. What do you do with the drunken sailor? What do you do with the drunken sailor? What do you do with the drunken sailor? Early in the morning. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Early in the morning. Put him in a longboat till he's sober. Put him in a longboat till he's sober. Put him in a longboat till he's sober. Early in the morning. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Early in the morning. Shave his belly with a rusty razor. Shave his belly with a rusty razor. Shave his belly with a rusty razor. Early in the morning. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Early in the morning. Put him in the bed with the captain's daughter. Put him in the bed with the captain's daughter. Put him in the bed with the captain's daughter. Early in the morning. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Early in the morning. With I just down from the Isle of Skye. I'm nobody big and I'm up the shy. The lassie shout as I walk by, Donald, where's your trousers? Window high, the window low. Through the streets in me kilt I go. All the lassies cry hello, saying, Donald, where's your trousers? Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Way ho, up she rises. Early in the morning. The lassies love me, everyone, but they must catch me if they can. Can I put the brakes on the Highlandman, saying, Donald, where's your trousers? And the
And we're back.
Hello again. So, I think the difficulty we are already stumbling upon is how do you structure a podcast about pagan media? Because there's so much to talk about.
And it's been seen in so many different variations and different lights. And
for sure, one opinion is never going to be the same. So we're, I think just firing from the hip here, talking about like movies that we've seen, or movies that we like and movies that we dislike. I think the first one, when anybody who's been in paganism for any remote of time first he thinks of is The Craft.
Ugh.
Entertaining, I'll give it that.
It is, and it starts out, fair light with this main character. She moves in and she meets three friends and finds out the three friends are getting interested in Wicca, and so they go to a New Age store, which looks like most New Age stores that would be around here in the area that we've mentioned. And then it kind of goes off of this divergent skelter. Mm-hmm. It kind of gives this feel like that all teenage girls that when they're picked on and shunned by society, that they'll go into this dark form, and especially when they misuse it, especially when one of the other characters, I can't remember what her name was, but the one that was kind of gothic in a sense, she actually gets almost like all Super Saiyan and pushes that one guy out the window for trying to rape the other girl.
Yeah, I think, The Craft, and I know people might roll their eyes at us starting with this movie, but the Craft was entertainment, and I think you're right. It went from in the beginning, you see kind of a structure that's accurate, and it gets Hollywoodized. But I think if there's any positive, if you want to apply it to anything that could be related, I guess, to paganism as far as Wicca goes, is the concept of what is that? The law of three. Everything that you put out comes back, and a more of a balancing act of light and dark rather than good or evil.
Especially when one of the characters had that bad back problem, and then they did a kind of like a ritual that cured her of it.
Yeah.
A lot of us do that where we'll light a candle for healing energies or blessings.
But I think everybody in paganism should eventually see The Craft. If you haven't, I think majority probably have. But I think just to see what we're talking about, just to kind of get your own opinion of it, because no doubt that's going to come up if you ever bring up like pagans in movies. It was entertaining. It was very entertaining. I wish I could shoot fireballs from my fingertips, but it just isn't going to happen.
Or be able to summon loads of insects from the sink.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Or where I could just hover on the ground where my toes drag on the ground and say, "You dare harm me!"
So yeah, that again was the Craft came out the 90s.
It was the 90s, I believe, 97. Correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere around there.
Yeah, it was. I would. See, how I would classify it as it came out within like the 90s slasher.
Yeah.
There was kind of that, Scream and I Know What You Did Last
Summer, yeah.
American Werewolf in Paris. It was Apt Pupil. It was kind of that, high schooly, kind of what they did. I don't know, it would have been the mid-80s, like Friday the 13th and stuff.
Well, and especially when one of the characters gets picked on to these two blonde girls and all that, so I kind of have that Clueless kind of feel.
Yeah. That's all I got about The Craft. You can go watch it.
I believe it's on Netflix.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I think, since we're on the track of this one, one of the movies that I recently saw, which wasn't, well, I shouldn't say it wasn't that it was good, but it wasn't as terrible as the name would say. It is that one called Season of the Witch, which had Nicolas Cage and Ron Perlman in it. Ron Perlman. Not a bad movie. It was entertaining. I watch movies like that, just to see where it goes in Hollywood. If they're gonna make it look like witches or pagans, or we're all in league with the devil. But it did go that kind of way, but it wasn't such a slap in the face.
Slap in the face because it was like, well, I'm not like them. I just have these special abilities. And Nicolas Cage says, "Oh, well, I believe I'll protect you." And
well, Nicolas Cage, it used to be that you could rate him that, like, if he was in a movie, it was good. But I think in the past 10 years, it was like, it seemed like Nicolas Cage would take whatever script was handed to him. And so, in my opinion, it was hard to tell if what you were watching was actually any good.
Interesting to say that, especially with the second Ghost Rider movie that's just come out.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even know there was that they actually went through with that then. Huh?
Yep.
Who played the Ghost Rider in that then?
Well, Nicolas Cage played Ghost Rider, but
the second one?
Yeah.
In the second one?
Yeah, this one that just came out. Yeah,
I live in a cave.
Yeah, he's returned to the role, and I think it was I can't remember. It was kind of just all the kind of cure him from the curse and all that. And
interesting. Yeah, so Season of Witch wasn't bad. And speaking of Nicolas Cage movies, the one that I want to touch on here is The Wicker Man. Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of confusion. There's the remake, which had Nicolas Cage, and then there was the original Wicker Man. Okay, the original Wicker Man was made like back in the 70s, and it's actually a really good movie. I think for the most part, almost every pagan would say that's seen the original Wicker Man, not the Nicolas Cage one. It's actually a really, really fairly accurate movie. It's entertaining. It's good. It doesn't even really paint, I guess, a terrible picture of pagans, other than, pagans did human sacrifice in the past, and it's kind of horrific in that manner. But then against everybody, I think, did human sacrifices, and even Christians.
Oh yeah, back then.
I mean, so let's not cast stones.
It was a rough neighborhood back then.
Yeah. But the remake sucks. Yes, I know. I bursted out laughing at the remake in the theater, which, yes, I did go see it in the theater. I hadn't seen the original one, but yeah, I didn't even know there was an original when I first saw it. But I remember there's like a schoolhouse, and there's like this teacher, like going, what does men represent? And then all these little girls start going, phallic symbol, phallic symbol. And I remember I just started laughing. I was like, I'm in the back of the theater just cracking up, and everybody's looking back at me. I'm like, sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It's like, really?
Well, I guess it just goes to show you that sometimes when a remake is kind of not as great as the original, because it tries to update to the times of what Hollywood thinks that we perceive it as.
I can honestly say, if there's any movie in this whole entire podcast, if you just get to this point, please watch the original Wicker Man if you haven't seen. Even since you're on YouTube Wicker Man, original Wicker Man music. There's actually a couple songs there I wouldn't mind learning, which I've been thinking of learning even for like Beltane and stuff like that. They're really cool. Yeah, so screw the remake with Nicolas Cage. Good on the original. And I don't know. There's another movie coming up, I think, called The Wicker Tree, which is being done by the original people that did The Wicker Man. But I don't. That's not even out yet, I don't think, and I don't want to claim if it's good or bad or what's it could be crap. But if you like The Wicker Man, that is coming down the pipe. If it's not already out, The Wicker Tree,
and we'll probably go see it, and we'll let you know.
Yeah, that was something we were just talking about, going and watching movies and probably just doing some little reviews. And
we'll do some like actual video reviews of it when it's warm. We'll probably do it around the Fair Pit, because there's a couple of movies that kind of have somewhat of a pagan light in some way, shape, or form. That
and we'll probably even do maybe every couple months here. We'll probably even do like a pagan movie night.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if you're a listener on YouTube here, we all go and watch the movie together. Come online, you can put a video review of it, or leave a comment on our review of it, and see where we go with.
Yes, of course.
Anyways.
Well, then another one, and this one, it kind of obviously shows that they went towards the stereotypical is Hocus Pocus, that was done by, I believe, Disney. That was about three witches that starts out in Salem, Massachusetts, that were draining the life of children so they could be immortal, and of course they get hanged, and then of course it jumps to present day where they get awakened to try to do the same thing. Although I have to admit, Bette Midler was good. Mm-hmm. And I like that one part, especially when that third witch, I can't remember what her name was, but she ended up riding that vacuum cleaner like a broomstick.
Hocus Pocus, I would say, is like perfect example of like a lighthearted Hollywood view of witchcraft and paganism.
It's not necessarily bashing it.
Yeah.
It's just what.
I would say until even now, but getting much better. That used to be society's view of paganism. It was either outright evil or it was just foolish. It was just funny and foolish and something to kind of poke a stick at.
Kind of like how the fairy tale stories would show it in that light.
Which is interesting because, jumping off of that, it's interesting to see in the media now, especially how much more there is in like TV shows and stuff that play off of from myth and lore to paganism. I haven't watched it, but I know there's a show called The Secret Circle that a few friends of mine really like. I know in True Blood, I think in the last season, I don't watch it either. The same buddies are into it. They had like a whole season based around witches.
The most recent episodes of the Marvel Comics version of the Avengers, there was a 2-parter episode where Loki takes over the 9 worlds, and the Avengers end up in all the separate worlds. Mm-hmm. And if you ever wanted to brush up on Norse mythology, it was almost like an interesting one. Like Iron Man ended up in the world with the dwarves, where they made him a new armor made of the metal the Thor's hammer is made out of, and
oh jeez.
And I think like Ant-Man ended up with the Valkyries. That's
very cool, but don't get your lore source from that.
Yeah.
Not to steal your thunder, but
I know.
Please don't take it to heart.
So yeah, they still were off, but it was just kind of interesting how they kind of took the take of the whole thing.
That is fun. I mean, even in talking about Norse mythology, the Thor Marvel comic movie that just came out, very far fetched from the lore, not terribly accurate. But as a pagan, especially as a person such as myself, who's practically heathen, is to see that it's fun. I think I saw the gamut of people getting pissed about it and people really liking it. I mean, it kind of goes like with the same thing with like, I guess I would say with the craft or hocus pocus. Take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, they're not really insulting on purpose. It's just it's just the director saying, well, this is how I want to portray it.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we were saying, like with the TV shows, you're almost seeing, in my opinion, you're almost seeing like an evolution of that viewpoint of paganism changing. Before it was very much the hocus pocus, type of view where it's either evil or it's something that just it's just fairy tales and Halloween stuff, and it's fun to just kind of have ooh spooky. Where now we're really seeing it's starting to be taken more and more serious. You're starting to have people who are practice it and stuff. I think starting to infiltrate and be converted within Hollywood and stuff like that. And so it's not so much. It's not all the time. Let's just poke fun at it or kind of stretch lore. It's becoming more of a serious. I don't know. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, with television, the biggest one that I've heard like some new pagans talk about is like, I saw the show Charmed.
Yeah.
Where they got spell books. I mean, it would be cool if I could be able to teleport, just like they could.
Yeah. But I think too, like I think in the past I've ran into some people where they get like pissed off and I wish that I'm always like that because people see them and take them at face value and stuff like that. And yes, there are those individuals, and I think that can be annoying. But it's not that hard to just tell an individual like, all right, come on, let's be realistic here, and let's face it. Individuals that are going to take that at face value aren't going to stay as practicing pagans for long anyway. So don't get your short tall and a rumple, in my opinion.
Well, then, and then there's Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Now that didn't bash it at all. It was seen in completely highlight, it was completely humoristic.
I forgot about that show.
Yeah, and it was in the sense that it had good morals, especially when numerous times that Sabrina would misuse her magic and then kind of learn a lesson that you gotta kind of be more responsible.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is what we pagans do believe in, is that we can't just push people around.
Well, what are some of the other new ones I've seen come out too? They have Once Upon a Time. Mm-hmm. I saw a show called Grimm.
What was that?
Supposed to be coming out soon or starting up.
What was that one movie a couple years ago, The Covenant?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, That would have been... The Covenant made me think of, like... I don't know, it was like the... Rather than the female... The female high schoolers magic movie... The Covenant was like the males... The male high schooler, young girl squee, like...
It was like
male version of The Craft.
Yeah, pretty much. And it was then it was all like, I got all this.
Except far worse done, in my opinion.
Well, and it was like, I've got all this magic power. I could take you down easy. I'm gonna steal your girl, and like, I'm not gonna stop you, and all that. It was like,
yeah. Whereas The Craft had some semblance of accuracy to paganism, the Covenant had none.
It had none. It was
other than the fact that they based it in Salem, Massachusetts, and that's about it.
And the pentacle in the
opening title. That The Covenant's a whole different story. But I guess if you haven't seen, you can always watch it. What was it? I can't think of it. I don't have cable, so I don't watch a lot of TV shows. But
well, then of course there's like the shows like the Wizards of Wizardry Palace, which is kind of on the Disney Channel.
Oh, Wizards of Waverly Place.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I know this is because my son watches that show. Yeah, that's another one I'd say. That's kind of on the lines of Hocus Pocus.
It's Hocus Pocus. It's like a sitcom Harry Potter almost.
Basically. I mean, Harry Potter's even one we can throw in here, but I don't even think that one needs to be discussed. If you don't know what Harry Potter is, you've been living with your head in a hole.
Your head in a hole. Not been reading much books. Even
if you didn't read them or not, I think everybody's heard of Harry Potter. Which they aren't bad.
I never read the books all that a great deal. I mean, I did read some of it, but I never seen it as a bad light. Especially when, in fact, I got the Quidditch Cup for the GameCube. Very good game.
Yeah, I've never been... I tried reading the Harry Potter books. I didn't care for the books, not because I didn't like the story. I just couldn't get into them. But I always did enjoy the movies. And I don't know if I can blatantly compare... I mean, there's a crap ton of pagan elements in those movies. I mean, for sure. But I don't know if I would throw it into the same category as, like, The Craft or The Wicker Man, because it's not...
It's not good or bad. It's kind of just that like gray zone.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah, and it's not blatantly coming out and like I don't know. Like its attitude isn't even stating like this is modern. This is modern day paganism. It's really a modern day fantasy movie.
Well, especially the fact that especially nowadays that pagans do not hide out somewhere beyond Muggle eyes to do our rituals and all that. We've gotten more and more often. Especially if you go to our favorites on our YouTube channel and see our Pagan Pride Day.
Yeah. So, I don't know. A few movies that I wanted to mention that I've always really enjoyed is the Studio Ghibli films, which is more just a category. I think it's Miyazaki. It's a Japanese company that puts all these full-length movies, and this Miyazaki guy is the guy that's kind of the head of it. But they've made movies like the couple that are really good and very pagan elemented are Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, My Neighbor Totoro. Gosh, I'm trying to think of the other ones. Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind, Hall's Moving Castle.
And I don't watch much anime myself, but those movies are so beautifully animated.
Well, for sure. I mean, in my opinion, those would be like the perfect movies to show your children. They're even entertaining for adults, but perfect for kids to start getting them to kind of get an understanding of kind of paganism's view of the natural world and stuff like that. I mean, they're beautiful. They're very well told stories. Especially like Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, and Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind. Those three would be the themes behind them.
Yeah,
are so pagan. It's awesome. And then My Neighbor Totoro is kind of just a real, which has a very good theme too. But that'd be a very good one too. highlighting like the spirits and stuff. But I think you get that with these movies because the man writing them is Japanese, and as we know, Japan's never had a break in their indigenous practices.
Oh yeah, they've been doing it for thousands of years.
I mean, Shintoism has never ended, and Shintoism is they would call it pagan, but it would fall under that pagan light. It's an indigenous practice. So I know when I got the chance to be over in Japan when I was in the Navy, I mean, their view on religion in the world is just so beyond the Western concept, other than what they emulate from us. It's kind of hard to. It's a shock, but that's a whole different story. But it's true. I mean, we're in the West here, quite a different viewpoint. But
very much so.
But yes, any of the Studio Ghibli films, and if you missed what I said, Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke, and the oldest of these three is Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind. Those would be the three that I would really recommend if you haven't seen any of them. And I think you'll find the rest on your own because they're just so damn good.
And the same thing goes with, and believe it or not, one of my favorite movies is The Lion King, which, especially anyone that studied shamanism, they kind of do this. You know, you kind of have some of the concepts of that with Rafiki, especially at the beginning of the movie when he anoints Simba. Kind of resembles that to Wicketing, which is kind of like a pagan blessing to a baby. Or the only difference is he just takes some fruit juices and just dabs it over Simba's forehead. In most Wiccan religions, or the one that I knew of with my daughter, it's basically where you just anoint your finger in water and then just draw a pentacle on the baby's forehead.
Yeah, and I think that ritual can even be seen both Wiccan, but I mean it's coming of birthing rituals. I mean, that's where I find it funny because if you look at even mainstay, and this is kind of going off the Lion King a bit here, but even mainstay like Abrahamic religions, they all have rituals for this sort of thing that stem from pagan practice of life transitions.
And then also again the signs from the elements and the herbs that come flying in. How Rafiki figures out that Simba's still alive. And then also it has the balance of nature of how that if you misuse it, the land will go into drought, like when Scar took over. But then when Simba took back, the world got better.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, The Lion King, I'd put up there with like the ones we just mentioned with the Studio Ghibli. Be a very good one to show kids as well as enjoyable for adults. On the concept and the underlying premise behind the movie is pretty overtly pagan. Yeah, Lion King's a good one. Another couple movies that I would mention that I really liked is one, and you're going to laugh, it's called Troll Hunter. And I found it by accident on Netflix. It's actually, I think it's a it's a Norwegian or
Sweden.
It might be Sweden. I mean, it's a Scandinavian movie.
Yeah.
And it's subtitled, but it's exactly what it sounds like. But it's taken, rather than it being a joke, the movie's totally done in like a completely serious attitude that there's this guy hired by the Scandinavian government that goes out and manages the trolls. And it is just, you gotta watch it. I watched it like 2 times in a row.
I watched it too, and it's done like, it does like the camcorder perspective, like that one movie in New York where it's done with the camcorder recording when that monster attacks New York.
Oh, Cloverfield.
Yeah. It's done sort of that certain format, especially that one part where they get to the bridge and there's that troll that's underneath, and he actually grabs them like, oh my god, he's got him and all that.
The part about that movie, like, this is kind of what makes it so enjoyable, I think, is from a pagan, is all the references to Christian-blooded individuals. Like, the first time when this guy meets him, he's like, are any of you Christian? They're like, what does that have to do with anything? The troll can smell a Christian's blood from a mile away, It's like, it's just like... Or when they get a new cameraman at one point, they're like, is she Christian? No, she's Muslim. Does that matter? Well, I don't know. Guess we'll find out. It's just, it's a really well done movie, and you gotta watch it.
I would recommend that too.
It's called Troll Hunter, and if you got Netflix, it's on Netflix. But I'm sure you wouldn't be that hard to find if you don't have Netflix. Another one that was really good, or actually they kind of came out around the same time, and one was a big theater release and the other one wasn't. Now is The Eagle was the big theater release, and Centurion wasn't the big theater release. Now Centurion and they're both kind of the same thing. Romans in Britain, and dealing with the Picts and the Scots up in northern Britain. Basically, that's kind of the nuts and bolts premise of both these movies. I would say Centurion was better than the Eagle, but they're both very well done. Their history is fairly accurate from what I can tell. I mean, I'm not terribly an expert in the history or lore of paganism or the peoples of northern Scotland and the Picts. I think I could hold my own, but I'm not an expert. But they're good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you seen either of those?
I don't believe I have.
You need to see them. They're really good. The Eagle, I don't think's on the instant queue on Netflix, but Centurion is.
Centurion is, okay.
Yeah. Those are two that if you have not seen them and you want to have a good pagan movie night, go watch. You'll watch either one or both of those, in my opinion.
And then going to television, I know that Star Trek has always, both in the original series, they've always have had purpose and morals that correlate to what they had now. Now, I don't know if you remember it, but there was an animated series they did a few years after the original series ended. And there was an episode called The Magics of Megas 2. And this episode is on Netflix. And basically where the crew of the Enterprise goes to the center of the Milky Way galaxy, and they wind up in this alternate dimension, and they meet this being who looks like Lucifer or Satan, and tells them that the world that they arrived at actually uses magic and has like a fantasy look to it, and that they had visited Earth at one point. Well, then when the crew starts messing around with the magic, they get found out by the beings that live there, and explain that they were chased out of the planet by the time of the Salem witchcraft trials because they were feared for their abilities. And they actually replicate the Salem witchcraft trials with the crew of the Enterprise, which is kind of interesting how it was kind of correlates to that of what the Next Generation did with the post-atomic horror. But I remember one part especially where the guy in the Salem witchcraft trials asks Kirk, has humanity gotten better since the Salem witchcraft trials? And Kirk explained, well, we had our faults, but we did get better over time, which I do agree. We've had our hitches every now and then, but we bounced back of it. And then eventually what happened was they were going to punish Lucifer just because for who he is and what they suspect humans see of him. But Kirk says, don't punish him. He hasn't done anything wrong. And they said, well, you passed the test because the fact you did not judge him by what is stereotypical, by other religions. But yeah, it's a very interesting episode for any pagan to watch, and it's on Netflix. So.
Yeah, I can't comment. I'm sorry, but I'm not much. I like Star Trek, and I know my wife would be totally online with you here, but I'm just not. I'm not a Trekkie. I'm sorry, but if it makes you happy, I prefer Star Trek over Star Wars. So
yay!
So, I'm with that. But I have to say, if I had to pick any, it'd be Firefly. Which is sad to say. I'm with everyone. I wish they would have continued that series because
Sarah will love you on that one.
Yeah, Firefly could have totally got into big time, which I did. But anyways, moving on. One movie, since we were talking about back to Netflix, that I really think was surprisingly well done, and I really think that every pagan should see, and not just pagan, but any religion should see it, is Agora. It's a movie about pretty much what happened in the Kemetic in Egypt with the fall of the Alexandrian library. With the oncoming Christianity and kind of the conflict that happened between paganism and Christianity, and it's got multi characters in it. So there isn't one main character, but it is a phenomenal movie, and it's sad. It's sad, but you got to see it. I mean, this is definitely a movie. I think if we're going to perhaps do like an online, let's watch a movie together and have an opinion, pagan movie night. Yeah, that Agora would be my vote.
Oh yeah,
because it's a thinker. It's a good one, but that's on Netflix too. So
because it also, especially nowadays when there has been concerns with some beliefs being pushed aside or being stepped on, the fear of history repeating itself.
Yeah,
it's a good movie to look at.
Well, and I think they treated it. The people who made the movie did a phenomenal job with it because they treat it without taking any one side, really. I mean, they point out the flaws of what happened with the Christians, and they point out the flaws that happened with the pagans, and everybody that was kind of involved in that time. They also point out the good things on both sides, and there's kind of an overarching, warning being put there of what needs to be remembered and what caused this, And I mean, I don't even want to say more than that because it's a movie I think that you really just need to see, It's
Oh yes, and then that, of course, that makes me think of Da Vinci Code, which was kind of an interesting, the whole concept that Jesus had a daughter. What was something was, though, that kind of got me was the fact that after the whole thing with Jesus Christ, that, of course, in history, the Catholics went and hunted down a lot of pagans. Now, according to the movie, they hunted down the pagans not because they were pagans, but they felt that maybe that one of them was the daughter of Christ. It was almost like a religious X-Files. That it was kind of like a cover-up.
Yeah, I love when you get into conspiracies like that. Even when they had in Angels and Demons with the Illuminati or Illuminatus. Yeah, Dan Brown's a very... and the interesting thing with those books even, too, and movies for that matter, is they're following I shouldn't say historical, but commonly known myths. I mean...
Yeah.
I can't go out and say that what Dan Brown wrote because it is fiction, but... That I'm not even going to get into because that's a whole... If you're interested in that sort of thing, then look beyond the movies. You'll be able to find it. Yeah, that's a good point.
And it just reminds me so much also back of how I found out about Wicca and paganism was, and I think I told this story in the very first episode we had, was there was an episode of Unsolved Mysteries that took place in Salem, Massachusetts, where there was this Wiccan high priestess who helped actually solve a murder mystery, and she basically just kind of used like the elements and the herbs around her to somehow figure it out, which was like kind of a jump between from like when some police officers use like psychics. That doesn't seem to always work out. And of course, I remember hearing Robert Stack. I think he died way too early. He said, if this was like 400 years ago, she would have probably been burned at the stake. But now she has been respected for her abilities. And I thought, and I was sitting there thinking, there's a belief on this?
Yeah.
And it just kind of was, and I went online, and it just was all history from there.
That's cool. Yeah, never mind. Let's say I was just going to comment on where I came into it. That's not even on topic. So, a few other movies to mention here, and then maybe we should we take a break?
Yeah.
Okay. I wanted to mention the 13th Warrior. That one's actually a bit historically accurate because it's about an Arab, and I'm going to butcher his name, but it's like Ibn Fadlan or something like that. He's a Muslim. He's Middle Eastern. Comes across a bunch of the Northmen, which we're assuming it's probably like the Geats or the Goths, or it's one of the Germanic tribes, which could be anywhere in northwestern Europe for that matter. And he gets hung up with them and kind of gets involved in their world. And there is a manuscript that he wrote about his experience with them and stuff like that. And the 13th Warrior kind of takes that historical tidbit and runs with it. It's a good movie. I mean, the movie actually starts out with the Northmen speaking in Old Norse until this Eben guy through the movie starts to learn their language.
Wow!
And so it's a very cool movie. If you haven't seen, it's got Antonio Banderas in it. I think it came out in the late '90s. I want to say.
I believe so. Yeah.
But yeah, that's a good one, and that one might be on Netflix, but that's not a hard movie to find. One movie that I did just put on my instant queue, which I haven't watched, is called The Pagan Queen. That one I saw on the queue that was related something to like a Slavic queen or something like that. I don't even know if it's any good. If you're listening to this and you've seen it, let us know.
Yeah, let us know on that one.
I'm trying to think. Is there any other movies? Any other specifically movies that we should mention that are either good or bad?
I'm thinking. That's the biggest thing. I mean, the only thing I can think of course, that for like television I know is with Buffy. Now, there was a lot of times, a lot of situations where they would do Wiccan spells and rituals, which were kind of kind of accurate, but still, Hollywood had to kind of put their salt in the wound, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, and obviously me and you are not sitting here trying to cast, well, you don't watch this, don't watch that.
No.
But I mean, it's interesting, I think, I guess where the brainchild for this podcast in general came from is to see the evolution, the media and popular culture is obviously where we can see the evolution, and yes, evolution in a better sense.
In a better sense, yeah.
Of the viewpoints of paganism and not even paganism, but just old world spiritual thought. I mean, I was mentioning to you, and I don't remember, but I think it was like a Ford commercial or something where I don't even know if it was that, but they were referencing of like Zeus and how the gods would approve, and this is like
yeah, I remember that. No, it was.
So you know which one?
It's the boxcar, because there's something, because Zeus almost looked just like you, Grant, too. Because I looked it looks like Grant, because he goes boom, and he goes, it's auto tuned.
See, and how? I mean, I don't even remember a couple years ago ever seeing anything like that. Now we're having these sort of commercials come up, which shows you that. I mean, paganism, and I haven't looked at a survey. Maybe actually during our break here, we'll take a look on the internet, see if we can find an up-to-date survey on where things stand with how big paganism probably has fallen. Because it's getting big enough where if companies are making commercials, because they wouldn't make a commercial like that if they weren't trying to seek the interest of a certain category of people.
Obviously.
So, yeah, I don't know. I only have a small list here of what I want to mention.
Yeah, it probably dawned on me when you told me that it was like that, because I remember the first thing was the fact that, you look sort of like you, Grant.
I mean, barring the only movies I can think of is the fun movies such as Jason and the Argonauts. And,
oh yeah.
Excuse me, that's kind of gross. They had that Beowulf movie.
Yep, that was a recent one. Yeah,
the most recent one. That one was fairly accurate up until about the middle. But it was still very entertaining. Gosh, that's about all I can think of.
Yeah,
I guess I know there's a lot I'm sure we missed, but let's take a break here and we'll be back and talk with you a little bit more.
All right.
In the woods there grew a tree, and a fine, fine tree was he.
And on that tree there was a limb, and on that limb there was a branch, and on that branch there was a nest, and in that nest there was an egg, and in that egg there was a bird, and from that bird a feather came, and all that feather was a bird. And on that bed there was a girl, and on that girl there was a man, and from that man there was a seed, and from that seed there was a boy, and from that boy there was a man, and from that man there was a grain, and from that grain there grew a tree. And on that tree there was a limb, and on that limb there was a branch, and on that branch there was a nest, and in that nest there was an egg, and in that egg there was a bird, and from that bird a feather came, and all that feather was a bird. And on that bed there was a girl, and on that girl there was a man, on that man there was a seed, from that seed there was a boy, from that boy there was a man, from that man there was a grape, from that grape there grew a tree. And on that tree there was a limb, and on that limb there was a branch, and on that branch there was a nest, and in that nest there was an egg, and in that egg there was a bird, one that bird, a feather king. Your bird feather was a on that day there was a girl, and on that girl there was a man, and on that man there was the sea, and on that sea there was a boy, and from that boy there was a man, and for that man there was a grave, from that grave there grew a tree.
Okay, yeah, well, we got, just by happenstance, we decided to put the Maypole song by the Wicker, from the original Wicker Man there. So you can't tell me that that isn't a really cool song. So if you haven't seen the movie, go and see it.
Has a nice beat to it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely useful. But, you know, moving on here, basically, so we're not just going to sit here and bore you with our opinions on musicians and whatnot. Below in the description, we're going to have a list of the movies that we mentioned, as well as a list of some pagan musicians. You'd probably put Emerald Rose or Bruna.
Maybe even the simple ones like Enya, Lorena
Spiral
McKinnon.
Dance, Lorena McKinnon, or Spiral Rhythm, excuse me. Wathadea, they're not a bad one. Pretty much me and Thomas are going to put our heads together and list every pagan band we can think of for you to check out, as well as websites like Witch Fox.
Witch Fox has been on there since the internet came out. I mean, when I first started, when I heard about Wicca, that was one of the first sites I went about, and it was like, there was just like a treasure trove of information.
Oh yeah, Witch Fox is definitely, I know, I just said this comment to you, I mean, when you first start learning about paganism, you type in anything to do with paganism in Google, and you're going to get a hit on Witch Fox somewhere. And then but you know, keep in mind too, Witch Fox is big, but always the rule of thumb is take everything with a grain of salt.
Yes.
Pathos, we're going to link to www.pathos.com. They're basically one of the bigger kind of, I like to call them like the pagan CNN. They do the Wild Hunt, which is it's constantly updated and stuff like that. Definitely worth checking out. It would behoove you. Oh, before I forget too, we did look up, and we got this from Pathos, is that there is an estimated, 3.2 million pagans worldwide, and they believe that 1.2 of those is in the U.S. alone.
About around that, yes.
Okay. That was an estimate. I don't know. I think that was taken from a census or something, but to give you an idea. And on that note, we did find that Zeus car commercial I was talking about.
Yep, we'll post that link too.
I'll link that below. Bam!
It's been auto-tuned. And then there's this one site called Blog Talk Radio, and they actually have this witch school on there. If you look at witch school, you'll find it there. Selena Fox, one of the very popular pagans out there, she sometimes co-hosts on there now. She did guest spots on there, but then she's been on there more often, and they have lots of discussions and talks about it. They hold at like around 9 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah, Selena Fox not only is a popular pagan, but she's kind of one of the founding elders of getting the modern pagan movement going. Yeah, she's worth talking about. I think that's done by Reverend Don Lewis, isn't it?
I believe so, yes.
What is theirs? Theirs is witchschool.com. They have, is it the Carillion nativist tradition, I believe?
Yeah.
Of Wicca or witchcraft or what have you. I don't know much about it, but YouTube too, they got like Magic TV and stuff, Pagans Tonight. I have not watched, I've watched them a few times. Basically, if you get on YouTube and type it in, there's stuff. There's with that to look for, which we'll link this all below in the description.
One also I recommend is there's one lady called Blue Fire Witch that she does some videos giving some information and knowledge of some do's and don'ts of paganism and all that. And if you'll find it, I believe in the favorites in the YouTube channel.
Yeah. And I mean, you can find stuff not only just on Wicca, but specific traditions. I know there's several for heathenism. I've seen at least one for Hellenism. I mean, so just if you like it, there's probably something out there you can find for it nowadays. And if there isn't, learn about it and then make something for it if you feel so inclined, so that others can benefit from it. That's kind of where the brainchild for this whole podcast came from.
Yeah.
So, with that said, me and Thomas felt that it would be good to kind of reach out to perhaps our new pagans out there that might be listening and give some suggestions on where you should start, things you should watch out for a little bit on your knowledge quest, especially if you're kind of like a lot of pagans in good old rural North America. Probably don't have a lot of things near you, so the internet and books and stuff like that are probably going to be your greatest resource, at first at least.
Oh yes, and like what we mentioned before, don't only take what's seen in movies and television with only a grain of salt, because like we mentioned, it's not like as if they're just purposely trying to insult. It's just that that's what they kind of perceive it as.
Well, yeah, don't take it wrong. There's no reason why it can't be enjoyed. It's just look into it. That's where me and Thomas were just talking about with these websites. Check out Pathos. They'll give you, Witchbox. Those two sites especially are, as far as general paganism goes, are probably two of your go-to websites for that sort of thing. Also, too, for book buying. I know myself, and I'm sure Thomas can agree, and a lot of pagans who have been around the block at least know that Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble or any site that does book reviews are your best friend, because you're probably going to save yourself a lot of money if you can, if you're looking at a book in a bookstore, hop online and check out what people are saying about the book.
Yeah, because you have to be very careful, because there's some of those books out there, they're just kind of I don't want to say that they're just in it for the profit, but
well, it is true though. I mean, and sometimes then it's not even to say to check the reviews because we're saying that to see if the information is right or wrong. I mean, there's that, but there's also there's books that you might get into that aren't even anything that you're looking for. You might be looking for a book on, I don't know, solitary candle magic or something. I'm just making it up, but maybe you find a book that sounds like that's what it is and it's not. And especially in pagan, in the pagan metaphysical, even the broader occult community and stuff today, there's
so many different variations.
Yeah, there's mountains of stuff that you would have to wade through to kind of get where you want to go. So yeah, and some of my, I don't know how much you buy books, but that's like probably my greatest sin. If I'm sinful in any sort of the nature is buying too many books. But I guess what I'm getting at is reviews are great. And that doesn't mean just go by any review. If there's one review, like I was telling Thomas, you find a book and there's one review and it's 5 stars and the guy's just saying, woohoo, I love this book.
But they don't give an explanation why they love it. Yeah, then.
So I guess that's kind of up to you to decide. But, it's, go off the ones, use nowadays. I know when I started out, paganism was still new enough, unless it was like Drawing Down the Moon, or a book by Scott Cunningham, or some of the, Spiral Dance, the oldies but goodies. Those were really the only books that had any sort of decent review, unless it was, something that had been kind of picked up. Yeah. And nowadays, though, even with just a few years ago, even there's people are really hopping online and getting vocal about what certain books are good and stuff, because I think a lot of people are running into that problem. They were saying, this is crap, this is great, this is crap, I didn't like this is why, and you have people commenting, so...
Well, I remember, how Tess always told that Raymond Buckland's book on witchcraft is, she refers to as Uncle Bucky's Blue Bible.
Yeah, and that's a good point, though, because you could get on, especially Raymond Buckland. Raymond Buckland has people that either love him or hate him. And I guarantee you, if we hopped on Amazon right now and typed in Buckland's, what we call Buckland's Big Blue is what I've come to know.
Uncle Bucky's Blue Bible.
Yeah, you're probably going to have like 80 reviews, and it's probably going to be like almost split
50-50 split. Some of them are going to hit it, some of them like, oh, he doesn't know what he's doing.
But the good thing about that is it's going to give you an example of if you're reading those two different reviews, those two kind of different sides, you're going to get to know if is Buckland's flavor of witchcraft where I kind of want to be, or is it not? And you can kind of, maybe you find out, like, no, not so much, but maybe someone leaves a comment about a different style that, you don't know. And sometimes just jump off and find out. You never know. But anyways, I'm beating a dead horse here. do your homework is what we're kind of advocating.
Yeah.
And don't always take things at face value.
Especially with movies and television. Just because the fact you saw something on Charmed does not make you any better at it.
And again too, keep your nose up too. There's so many strains of traditions and ways in paganism nowadays that, you know, just because, let's say, you start out in one thing and it's not working out for you because you don't like it, dude, keep looking. There's something out there that you'll find that will suit you. I mean, I think it's kind of, in my opinion, it's asinine to kind of get, and I'm not going to get scolded for this, but it's kind of, you know, I think where a lot of us jumped out of like Abrahamic religions and stuff, or at least found a different strain of Abrahamic religions because of stagnation. Like, to think that you are never going to be as spiritually evolving is foolish. And so, like, I guess what I'm getting at in terms of if you don't like it, keep looking, you know, because what you're doing now may lead you to where you want to be later on. I mean, I'm certainly not myself practicing or pursuing what I started out in paganism.
Well, the same thing goes with myself. You know, 6 years ago, I mean, I was pretty much just simple, straight to the point, and it's evolved, especially like when we did the Samhain ritual, this last one. It was done in a totally different format I'd never done, but I enjoyed it. It was very unique.
Mm-hmm. And I can say the same. I mean, but that's where when you allow that spiritual evolution, as I would call it, take place and just kind of keep the doors open for yourself, you will end up where you're at. Now, that's not me saying that if you end up in a certain strain, not to stick with it. I'm just saying, always have an open mind.
Like, yeah, I was about to say as well. Yeah, keep an open mind.
Don't thump the book and say that.
Don't think that your way. You're the highway. My way of the highway, Mister. No, it's. I think there's more than one way to break an egg open, and that's just. I think that's pretty much the gist of how we're getting down to this.
Yeah, basically, you know, don't be a book thumper. You want to be a book thumper, you know where you can find plenty of those. So, I guess that's all I got. I mean, this is kind of a shorter podcast, but you know, basically we covered what we wanted to cover, and if you guys have any ideas, talk to us.
Yes.
You know, comment on things. Email us.
RayNorthPagan@live.com.
Yeah, you know, give us, if you have some ideas for some of the upcoming podcasts, let us know. If you're in the the Lake Agassiz Basin area, hey, give us a shout. We'd love to have you on Skype, even if you can't come in, and we're open. We're open to ideas.
You know, and kind of like a tradition, you know, we're kind of telling about, you know, the things that are happening. On February, I believe it's February the 4th, I think that's Saturday. Yep, February the 4th, we're having a Lammas ritual. Scott's hosting that one. It's gonna be in the basement of the UU Church where we hold this. The Imbolc, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
Imbolc, okay. That's going to be at the basement of the UU Church at 6 p.m. on that Saturday.
Yep, and that's one of our organizers with the Lake Agassiz Pagan Community is going to be facilitating that. So if you are not part of the LAPC, which is, you can find us at www.meetup.com. Come check us out. You might like what there is to offer and get a little bit more involved with the UU, the Cups, the LAPC, whatever works for you. So anyways, I guess that's what I got, and we're gonna have a bunch in the descriptions below.
Yeah, and then just go from there. And any comments, questions are more than welcome.
Yeah, and of course, if there's anybody that's new to paganism out there that you have any questions, comments, or concerns, I mean, you know, shoot us an email, and if we don't have the answer, we'll find someone who can get it for you. Okay? We
have some really knowledge people in the area that can,
or we can help point you in the right direction. I mean, we're not experts by any sense of the word, but we can help. Let's help each other out if you need it.
Yeah.
So this is Grant Sunweaver Ridgeway,
and this is Thomas LionLord Punton.
And thanks for joining us, and we'll see you guys again. Take care.
Blessed be.